explain what metabolic flexibility is and how this relates to intermittent fasting, as I know you did some talks related to this subject.
Yeah, so in all these things, definitions matter. So people have mentioned that in the Bible, fasting is mentioned like 60 times. In other religions, fasting is mentioned for health benefits, for religious traditions, but we don't know what that means. Intermittent fasting for some people can just mean having dinner at 6 at night and not eating again until 9 or 10 in the morning. So they squeeze their eating time, time restricted eating, into just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But so much of this is cultural. For example, in a lot of cultures, you eat 2 meals a day, some 1 major meal a day, and snacking. In America, 3 meals a day is long the tradition, but in recent years, it's been snacking all the time. So like sporting events, the moms are out there with little snacks for the kids because with the idea that they can't, get through, 6 or 8 hours without eating. So a lot of it is intermittent. A lot of the discussion of intermittent fasting is unclear because we have different definitions of it. Back to metabolic flexibility, the theme here is that our metabolism, we need energy, to survive, to power our muscles, to power our internal organs. And that energy generally comes from glucose when we're eating carbohydrates. So you have a meal, your body can metabolize protein, it can metabolize fat, but generally carbohydrates and glucose is where we get our energy for day to day. So like athletes often talk about carbo loading. I used to, eat a bunch of carbs before a game thinking I needed all those carbohydrates for the energy for basketball or sports. So anyway, long background on that, but metabolic flexibility means we can use carbohydrates when we have them, but if we're busy, we don't need to eat. You can skip breakfast, you can skip lunch, and your body naturally shifts when you're metabolically flexible. When it can't find any carbohydrates, when you haven't eaten carbs for some number of hours, the body shifts over to burning fat. It pulls fat out of your cells, converts it into ketones, and then you use those ketones to provide energy for your body, for your brain. And being able to shift back and forth from carbs to ketones or fat is necessary. In our past, people didn't always have, a snack or a bar that they could pull out of their back pocket to chew when they had the slightest bit of hunger. So understanding what hunger is, having the flexibility to shift from eating carbs to not eating carbs is what I refer to as metabolic flexibility.
In Europe, we tend to eat, and I'll explain how and what type of diet we have, but we don't put so many names. We don't even think about it. And that's actually the Mediterranean diet. And it's funny because when I was doing some research, I was reading about and all the dietitians that I used to have, and I have, they always recommended me the Mediterranean diet, and that's what I've been following, which contains for our listeners, just in a nutshell, fruits, vegetable, grains, of course, not processed food, no sugar, no cookies, no donuts, but whole grain, oats, vegetables, protein, fat, healthy fats such as nuts, avocado, olive oil. And I was reading an article, and I discovered that from all the countries in the world, the most healthiest one, it's actually Spain, followed by Italians. And I'm not surprised because guess what? They actually have the Mediterranean diet. So it's a mix of everything in a small quantity, but they get all the nutrients. They have their toast of bread in the morning or their oats in the morning, but they won't start eating maybe in the night the whole loaf of bread, right? They will have a bit of bread, but it's all about, as we mentioned, about enjoying the food, about chewing properly, about sitting and socializing. Therefore, their digestion system, it's better. They don't have so much gut issues, or at least they don't know, but you don't hear so much like Americans or North America or in Canada, as now I live in Canada. And this, I would go back a little bit with and connect a little bit to the question that we kind of wanted to throw to each other. What do I believe about intermittent fasting, and what is my experience on that? And I guess I just don't put a name, but I do it without realizing, meaning that I do have in general 2 meals a day, and my dinner, it's a very early one. In general, I work at the university, so I bike if the weather it's nice. Yesterday was really nice, so and we have sun today. So I biked, I came home, I came around 5, since I just have my breakfast around 9-ish. So I have my coffee in the morning, then around 9 a breakfast. Then maybe I'll have a bit of fruit in the middle, just in case I get hungry, or a bit of dark chocolate. And then when I get home, I prepare and I have my dinner around 5:30ish. And then I don't eat anything up until next day around 8 or 9. So call it intermittent fasting or whatever, but I do that. And I do think it's really good. If you were to ask me what I think about it, I think it's good. I think it's good to give the stomach and our digestive system a rest, as we do with our muscle when we train. We have to take one day off, or just one day of stretching, right? So I think it's just great doing that. And that's what I'm doing. But I just I'm not so obsessed with putting names. I'm doing what I think it works for me and how my body feels. And just a quick example, and with that I'll give you the word, because I want to throw you a question. I have a friend, she's Spanish as well. She trains a lot. She's very active. And she has 3 meals a day, and she keeps saying you have to have 3 meals a day, but she has really small quantities. But for her it works, for me does not. So that's what we were trying to say always in our podcast. Limit, chew properly so that you can digest properly, and then just don't be obsessed with so many names or keto or whatever, because then your brain, it's going to say, oh my God, I'm going on a diet, and then it can actually dangerous that you might actually follow up into a binging because you restrict so much. Just don't educate so much your brain that you're going to be in a certain diet. Just do that without adding the pressure of just adding a name behind it. But I want to come back to you, and
can I put in on that? The theme that's presented over and over and over is to eat till you're full, satiation. Yeah. So if you're feeling hungry because your friend says don't eat breakfast, and you just suffer and don't eat breakfast, that's not a good thing. So everybody's different. Our insides are different. Maybe that person has a smaller stomach. They're different. Exactly. They're way different in sizes, and their digestive system is different. So people are sort of searching for what works for them. But the theme of the people who are against dieting, saying if you deny yourself, you can starve yourself down to lose a bunch of weight, but you create all these problems. So anyway.
Exactly. And I wanted to ask you, Greg, because I notice when people are talking about intermittent, so my question would be, what do you think and what's your experience with intermittent fasting? But I just want to add to this question a note, because everybody's talking about skip the breakfast, especially in North America, and just go for lunch and dinner. But then dinner, like for me, it's worse. It's better maybe to have kind of like a breakfast or a late lunch, dinner, rather than having maybe at 12 or 1 the lunch, and then a small window so that your system can't process properly the food, and then again at 7 dinner, when normally dinner should be really light, or sometimes even skip. Why don't people skip and do intermittent fasting with dinner? And it's always that talk about skip breakfast, don't have breakfast. What's your opinion, and what's your experience with the intermittent fasting and metabolic flexibility?
So first off, I'd say there's cultural traditions. If you grow up with your mother serving you breakfast every morning and emphasizing how important it is, then people are naturally going to have breakfast. Then you go to college and you spend 4 years not having breakfast because you sleep in too long. So it's a question of what works. So people could try eating, like for me, I had breakfast every morning. I had a bowl of, Raisin Bran or some other cereal, and it was normal. But then I thought, well, am I, after reading these things, am I really hungry? What happens if I don't eat breakfast? And now I'm just trying to figure out when I'm hungry. And so the sense of this craving that often comes following eating carbs and the blood glucose surge and all the stuff inside, people are like want a snack, or they call it hangry. But really, we have to learn what it means to be hungry. When are we really hungry, and when are we just sort of antsy and bored and go in the kitchen and eat something because it's nearby? I had a little stash of chocolate, low sugar chocolate, right next to where I worked in the other room for a long time. And I found that when I moved the chocolate just 15 feet away and put it in a drawer in the kitchen, my consumption dropped by 2/3. So I was eating just because it was in arm's reach, not because I was really hungry. So I think a lot of those things, they're habits or traditions. If you had a bunch of chocolate chip cookies around, which I did for my uncle, I found I ate a lot more of them than when I didn't have them around. And I don't miss them. In fact, I haven't thought about them till I just mentioned them there. So is it great to have cookies? Well, if cookies are calling for you and you want a cookie, great. But now to get a cookie, I have to drive up to the store and buy one. And I just don't do that. So anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know if that responds to your question, but
Yeah.
the metabolic flexibility, I went to a conference and just there wasn't a restaurant right where I wanted. The hotel food was too expensive. They didn't serve breakfast because I was in too nice of a hotel. So in a nice hotel, you have to pay for breakfast. In a cheap hotel, it's free. The weird world of hotels.
Oh,
So I went a couple days without eating much because I was busy doing things. I got tested for my blood glucose level and my ketone level at the conference, and I was burning ketones. So I had the metabolic flexibility to not have to eat for a couple days, although I had a few keto snacks they had at this thing. So when I got back, I'd lost 5 pounds, but I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was just going to a conference. It wasn't that I was panicked because I couldn't find food. I had coffee in the morning with cream in it. And I was comfortable. I didn't seem crazy, although you'd have to ask other people at the conference whether I was acting crazy, but I seemed normal. So that flexibility is a power. It's like you don't have the impulse that you have to, grab things or do this or do that. You're not suffering impulsive behavior. And with food, it's nice to be able to, eat when you're hungry, but not eat when you're busy.
yeah, I agree. I think boredom makes a lot of difference, and it's true. Most of the time, we're not quite hungry. It's just the habit of just like snacking something. But as you mentioned, in general, well, I don't eat sweets and bread here. I'm sorry to say, but I can't find the best one. So to be honest, I don't eat too much bread either. But sometimes if I love nuts, and I can't stop eating nuts, and I know they're healthy to a certain point, but so then I don't buy them big jar in Costco because I know that if I buy that, I won't stop. So in general, in the morning I do my exercise, and then if it's nice, I take my bike and bike to the university. And to be honest, it's not a very easy bike ride because there's a lot of hills. The beauty is when you come back because it's just downhill, but when I go up, it's not so fun. So yesterday, for example, I went for a small run, a small jog, and then I did my 45 minutes bike ride to the university, and I didn't eat anything, just a bit of coffee up until 10. And I was actually a bit dizzy, right? But not always happens, right?
People have to learn this stuff for themselves and find out what's going on, which is why we recommend a blood test. Find out your hemoglobin A1C, your fasting blood glucose, your vitamin D levels. Everyone is different. And it's a bit of a discovery process to figure this stuff out. And unfortunately, doctors and nutritionists disagree about keto good or bad, or carbs good or bad, or do you need to have lots of whole grains every day, 7 meals? It's unfortunate that there's so much difference of opinion or difference of what people perceive as the facts regarding nutrition and health for everyday people.
Right. And just to wrap up a little bit from all the studies and research, would you sum up for our listeners what is the best way, actually I would say the healthiest way, to reach metabolic flexibility and how this can be done?
So my recommendation is to learn about it, is to watch. I got involved by watching videos of people talking about the history of dietary guidelines, of the energy balance theory of obesity. And then I watched videos of people talking about ketosis and what happens. There's one called Eat Like the Animals, researchers from Australia who focus on, all through the animal kingdom, it's a question of protein. People eat till they get enough protein. And another one is on intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. And as you said, how it gives your body a rest. I think people, people have to draw from their own experience and learn what works for them. And it's unfortunate because we're so influenced by one of the things we were going to talk about are the two movie stars, Jennifer Aniston and I've forgotten the other one. They have a TV show and they mentioned that they don't eat in the morning. They don't eat till such and such a time, although one of them has fruit juices or.
That's what I wanted to say. That's actually breaking the fast.
Yeah. And also I would ask, are these women healthy? Now they're super skinny because that's what works in Hollywood, right? That's you need to look on the camera and have your clothes be glamorous. But maybe both those women would be healthier if they were 10 or 15 pounds heavier. I can't speak for them. I don't know their story, but they're under pressure to be skinny in Hollywood to look good in the movies or with their fashionable clothes. And the challenge is a normal person, I don't know what normal is, but someone looks at movie stars and says, boy, my body is too thick. I need to get skinny. So people get emaciated thinking that that's what they need to look like for the movies, or their face, they want it thinner. I was always unhappy with my neck for some reason when I was a teenager. I've forgotten what it was, but everyone else all these other guys in school look so handsome and I look like a doofus. So, I mean, people are unhappy with how they look in the teen and preteen, and then they often go on diets and try and binge. And that's the story of Oprah Winfrey. Zoe Harcum talks about that. Oprah Winfrey goes on this diet. She loses a ton of weight, then she gains it back. She spent her whole life in yo-yo diets, and that's not a healthy thing. So the end thing is to find what's healthy, what's flexible, but that body types are different. Your stomachs are different, your insides are different, and everyone shouldn't be stick thin like on television. Being a fuller figured person, in tradition and culture in women, you look at the pictures, from Europe, all the women were much heavier. And that was the glory of beauty at the time, voluptuous. Well, now are women not supposed to be voluptuous? They're supposed to be really skinny so they look good in model clothes. I mean, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's that trend. That's what we were mentioning before. Lots of names behind it, but don't feel that pressure. Just go with what works for you. Be educated. Research yourself. Listen to podcasts, and understand better the nutrition, because it's a whole world there and it's very complex. Yep. Thank you so much, Greg. It was really a pleasure having you as usual. And for our listener also, they can always subscribe to our YouTube channel and the podcast channel. We will make sure to put that in the description of this video, so this way they can stay up to date, as we always come with new and hot topics, and especially this one, it's in trend. So it was really nice to learn more about metabolic flexibility, intermittent fasting, what worked for you, what did not for me, and based on the research you had and I did as well. But yeah, okay. Thank you again, and I wish you a good day.